Did you lose all your money?
Yeah.
Every single dollar?
Oh yeah.
You were down to zero?
I was maybe down to negative like 50.
50,000?
50,000.
Negative?
Negative.
Like I've met people, with all due respect to them, you know, like their life goal is like 15, 20K a month.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, like you can do better than that. So you hit 80K a month with that offer?
I hit 80K a month with
And then you stopped it?
COVID hit. Those are just expensive lessons.
Yeah, 100%.
The most expensive one when a business partner of mine took 300K from my bank account.
Ouch.
Yeah, but we'll get into that after. But
hey, what's going on, my man?
what's going on, brother?
Welcome to the podcast, brother.
Thanks for having me.
This is freaking really cool because we're about to start a business partnership.
Yes.
This is the first time I meet you face to face.
Literally, we closed the deal like 3 days ago.
Yeah.
Or 2 days ago.
Just got paid on it like an hour ago.
Nice.
And this is the first time we meet face to face, and now we're running a podcast. So, I know, just to give a little bit of background for the audience, you're kind of involved in helping e-commerce businesses scale right now, right?
Yeah, that's what I do
That's
now.
the main thing that you do.
Yeah.
You've had some pretty cool successes and some interesting failure stories. I know, like, when we met, like, how long has it been since I've known you?
I'd say maybe a year.
A year, yeah. We got introduced.
Maybe even longer, actually.
Oh, actually, I know how. So, do you remember how we, like, first got introduced to each other?
Was it IG?
No, so you started posting TikTok videos, and I saw one of them that like kind of took off, and I was like, this is really cool because you're like another Muslim entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
And to me, I don't have a lot of Muslim people in my life that also run businesses, so I thought it was really sweet, your message. I aligned with it, and I kind of forgot about it, let it go, and then like I think 3 weeks later, my mom sends me that same video.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I remember you told me your mom sent it to you. I was like, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. She sent me that same exact video. I'm like, dude, I know this guy. So I was like, you know what? This is a sign.
Yeah.
So I just followed you and DM'd you, and here we are today, man.
Yeah, man. I actually used to watch your podcast too.
Really?
Back when you were like super active with your podcast.
This is gonna start pumping again. We
Yeah,
have
man.
like 6 episodes already pre-filmed. So
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah,
dude.
yeah.
The podcast was really nice.
Yeah.
I think you were one of the first like people to really go all into.
Yes.
It was
yeah.
you and Omar, that one guy.
Remember the rock star?
Yes, Omar the rock star.
He's like across the street from me. Good
No
friend of
way.
mine.
Yeah, I used to watch your podcast.
Yeah.
Definitely love the interviews.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, no, definitely. I kind of, had a bit of a time period where I had to stop to run ops in the business and
Yeah.
just a lot of stuff. But now, thankfully, we have a whole setup, an area to shoot. So we've already done like 6 episodes, and we're gonna be posting like twice a week. So
And you guys are in prime location too.
I know
It's pretty close to
a
everything.
lot of cool people around
Yeah,
here.
when you live in Arkansas like me, man, you got nothing.
Yeah.
You gotta fly everywhere.
We'll get into that, man.
Oh,
So
man.
tell us a little bit about your story. So what I know so far is like you've had some interesting failures. I kind of want to start there.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people like we immediately go into the successes of life, which I'm like, all right, let's talk about the rut, right? How you first initially got started, and I know you during COVID built a fitness equipment kind of e-commerce store.
Yeah, built a fitness equipment company with a client of mine actually.
Okay.
It was a business partnership with a client, and then we actually got out of the business. But when I got out of the business, it completely just went bankrupt.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Did you sell?
I sold my shares. Yeah.
Oh, you sold your shares. So you
Yeah.
sold it right at the peak.
I saw the ship sinking.
Oh, you saw it sinking ahead of time.
Oh yeah. I knew what was gonna happen, and it wasn't a glamorous exit. It was a very stressful time, just because we were doing $2 million a month in sales,
That's crazy.
and we had like a 60% profit margin. Because when COVID hit, every single fitness equipment supplier was out of stock.
Yeah.
Right? We were one of the only people that really had stock. And then we reached out to a couple manufacturers in China, and we were like, hey, listen, we'll get whatever inventory you guys have, branded, unbranded, we'll buy it. So while everyone was struggling with fitness equipment inventory, we were getting shipments coming in every single day, and then we just sold it at 3x the price.
That's crazy because
we
it's
had
like supply and demand.
Exactly.
That's insane.
So
Yeah.
a pound was selling for maybe 70 cents a pound. We were selling for maybe $3.50.
Wow. That's nuts. Yeah, that just goes to show you,
Yeah.
man, positioning is so key in running a business.
Yeah.
But tell me a bit about your story. So when you first started, because I know you had an agency before that didn't go
Dude.
too well, and
Yeah.
lost
yeah.
a ton of money. But tell me that story that we talked about.
Okay, so my story actually goes back to when I was a kid. I remember I was just actually telling my wife this. As a kid, when people would ask me, what do you want to do when you grow up? My answer was always, I want to be a businessman.
Yeah.
I always knew I wanted to be a businessman, and the way I envisioned being a businessman was, I said, I want to wear a black suit and have a suitcase. and I was obsessed. I don't know, it sounds
Did that
weird.
come from like a movie or something?
Dude, I don't even know. I don't know. It was just like a random obsession that I had, and I always wanted like a suitcase, like a black suitcase,
Yeah.
with files and paper in it, and money.
This guy's looking a little more like a lawyer.
I have no
Yeah.
idea why, and then just like a black suit with a black tie. So I was obsessed with like the world of business, and I loved like Jeep Liberties back in the day. They were like the businessman cars. So
Yep.
I don't know what my dad is a dentist, my mom's a dentist. Like I had no reason to want to be a businessman. So obsession started at a really young age, and in middle school, we lived in Kuwait. So as an immigrant, I'm from Egypt, born and raised out there. As an immigrant in Kuwait, these kids in Kuwait had a lot of money. Obviously, Gulf countries, the government pays them.
That's the Arab money that people
Arab
talk
money,
about.
and it's real. And I got to see that. Being from a family, my dad is a dentist. He was like a really, head of a hospital in Kuwait, and we were doing okay. We did well, but that was another level of money. These kids used to like literally would buy something and dump it right in front of you just to show you they don't care.
Really, it was like that?
They would buy lunch, and then they would buy the best like sodas or whatever was selling there, and they would just take it and open it and dump it right in front of you, so you see that they don't care.
What the
And
heck?
it was like
That's interesting.
a very interesting way
Yeah.
to handle things, right? But I used to see that, and I'm like, man, like that's crazy. So what I did was, during that time, boxers. Remember when they had like cartoons and characters on them, and then there was like a big trend. Everyone would sag. So I caught the trend, and I remember going to this one store with my mom that sold wholesale, clothing and toys and stuff like that. So I went saw like a big bag of boxers for 1 dinar, and it had 20 boxers in it. So what I did was I told my mom I need money. So I took money from my mom, saved up from my allowance through both of my parents, and then I went and bought a big bag of 20 boxers. And then I went back to my school. I think I was in maybe 7th grade, and I sold
How
it.
old are you? Then?
I have
What's
no idea.
7th grade? What is that? 12?
Maybe even less.
Yeah.
Yeah, 10, 11, 12, and I sold it to, and I wasn't thinking
Where'd
of like,
this idea come from?
man, I wasn't even thinking profit. I saw a need, and I was like, man, I can just do this.
Did you want to make money?
It was like, it wasn't even about money, because at the time, at 10 years old, you have everything you need. You really don't think
That's
about
why I'm thinking, like, if
a
your
new
parents
car.
are dentists, that you don't
Yeah,
see it,
yeah.
like what?
I think for me, I just wanted to feel like I was contributing in a way. So I wanted to serve my class and the other kids, so I can like fit in or be cool. So I would buy the boxers, and then when I went back to my school, I had 20 pieces of boxers. I sold it for a quarter each. So
And you bought the whole box for how much?
for 1
1
dinar.
dinar.
So I made my money back in some, right?
Yeah.
So I kept doing that, and then I was like known as the kid that just sold stuff. So anyone would want, if they wanted anything, I knew my way around the city. I would actually skip school and just go buy the stuff. So I wasn't even going to class.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, and then I was, my parents obviously found out later, but it's too late. So I wouldn't go to class. My parents would drop me off. I would get off the bus and go straight to the stores. And sometimes I'd have to wait for them to open. Some stores open at 8 a.m., some stores open at 10. So I'd just hang out at KFC or some place until the stores opened. And then I'd go and buy whatever I need. And one time, a friend of mine, his dad owned a electronics store, so he gave him an iPod, or it was like an MP3 player. And my friend was like, hey, like, do you want to buy this? I was like, sure. So I took it from him. I was like, let me use it for a couple of weeks, and I'll see if I want it. He was like, okay. So he gave it to me, and then we had a lady that would come and clean the house, and I wanted to get rid of this because I didn't like it. Because I saw the Apple iPod came out. My aunt used to have the shuffle, and I wanted it.
Yeah.
She wouldn't let me use it, so I was like, I'm gonna get my own shuffle. So I was like saving up, and it was expensive, man.
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
really expensive. So I remember going to my the lady that would come and clean, and I told her, hey, listen, what type of music do you listen to? She gave me the songs she likes to listen to. So I downloaded LimeWire, downloaded all of the songs that she would listen to, put it on the MP3 player, gave it to her, and I was like, hey, use it. If you like it, just buy it. It's going to cost this much. She was like, I don't want it. I was like, just use it. So she would use it while cleaning the house. She would use it while hanging out. She made some use of it. And a couple weeks go by, and I go back to her. I'm like, hey, I want to sell it. So if you don't want it, I'll just go sell it to someone else. She was like, no, I'll keep it. How much is it? And I just sold it for the price that I.
Well, I'm shocked. Like, this doesn't come natural to kids.
I don't know what happened, man. I think sometimes it's like, I don't know. If, as an immigrant, sometimes you just have to find your way around. And I think a lot of us immigrant kids have this immigrant mindset of like, you see opportunity and you see what you want. To me, like, I wasn't making money because I wanted to save up a bunch of cash and have it in my bank. I really just wanted that iPod because I had a bad experience when I asked my aunt. We were at a vacation spot, I remember, and she had the best songs. I loved, like, you know, back in the day, man, when iPods came out, it was popular.
It was popular.
So like, I remember asking my aunt if I can use it, and she was like, no, I need it for the charge, because it had like maybe 8 hours of playtime. So I remember she said no one time, and she wouldn't let me use it, and I got so upset. I was like, you know what? Because I had a crush on a girl at that time, and I wanted to listen to music so I can feel my emotions a little bit. And we were like kids, man. Like I said, maybe 7th, 8th grade. No, not 7th grade, 6th grade. Because when we came to the U.S., I was in 8th grade. So I wanted to listen to some music, and she wouldn't let me listen to it. And I was going through a breakup.
He's like, I need it.
I need it, right? So I remember the feeling of not being able to have what I want at that time, and I hated it. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to make sure to never feel this again.
Interesting.
And then, started selling stuff, and that's how I was able to, start building some money and cash flow so I can buy whatever I need. So I went and bought the 80 gig iPod, the biggest one. Literally, when I walked into Apple Store and bought it, it was the 80 gigs one. The guy was like, I think it was 80 or 8. The guy was like, how old are you? I was like, and I was like 10 years old, 11 years old. I was like, I'm 11. He was like, who gave you them? Like, how did you get it? And, I was like, oh, my mom gave me the money. Because obviously, like, they're like, who the heck is this kid?
Yeah.
And then I remember I bought the PSP player.
Oh, PSP, man.
Man, when I went and bought the PSP player, I had PSP money and I came back with 15 games. So my mom, when I came back, my mom was like, I remember I got in trouble. She took it away from me. She was like, where are you getting this money from? I was like, oh, I won it at a Quran contest. Because like I couldn't tell her I had a hustle and I was making money. I was selling things because then she would be upset because she'll find out I'm not going to school. So, and surprisingly, nobody ever called my mom from the school.
Don't care.
They just didn't care. So I remember having to hide my wealth from my family at a young age.
That's hilarious, man.
Yeah.
Like, how much money were you making? Like,
man, I was like, at any given moment, maybe I had like 200, 300 dinars in my pocket.
Just chilling?
Yeah.
At 11?
If you do the
This
math,
guy's a king, bro.
if you do the math, that's a lot of money.
That is a lot of money,
For
yeah.
a kid.
I
would walk into a store after school with my siblings, and I would walk in with them.
Whatever you want.
I'm like, anything you want, grab it, and we would walk out with bags of snacks.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, and then just we moved to the U.S. after.
Oh yeah, okay. And how old were you when you moved?
I was like maybe 11, 12. No, okay. I was in 8th grade.
8th grade, so a year after.
Yeah, a year after.
Did you go to college?
I did. I actually studied industrial engineering at Arizona State, and I dropped out my last year.
Oh, so you didn't finish?
No.
Interesting.
I couldn't.
Yeah.
I physically couldn't.
Why'd you do engineering?
Because I was like,
parents?
if I'm getting no. My parents were like, be a doctor, and I was like, I can't. It's not my path.
Yeah.
And I knew it wasn't my path. It's to the point when I started college, my first day of college, as a college kid, I was 18 years old, and I remember enrolling in college, and I told my mom to come because I want to talk to her. We're sitting on the bench at this in this community college, and I started crying on the bench. Because that's how upset I was to be in college. And because I was like, I can't sit in a class. It's killing me. I can't just sit in one place and do bullshit work. So I remember crying, and my mom just felt bad for me.
She's like, you gotta go.
She was like, you have to finish. So I was like, man, I really, this is not my path. I need to do something. I need to go out there and make money. And it wasn't even for the money. It was just to build something, right?
Yep.
I wanted to build it. So I had to, it took me 6 years. I did 6 years of college.
Wow.
And I didn't even graduate.
Wow.
Yeah, but I
Was it 6
planning
years
go
to grow
back.
the sack to tell your parents I'm dropping out?
It was 6 years of like BSing myself, of like half here, half there, and nothing was actually happening.
So it was just
You know?
6 years of just like.
Me trying my best to balance both, work and school.
Were you running a business at the time?
Yeah. I had
So what was your first gig? Like your first
My
official thing?
first gig was it was a site called Discover Sacramento. So I lived in Sacramento, and I was like, just to keep myself busy, because I hated school, I was like, let me just start this blog. So I learned everything I needed to learn about blogs. And at the time, in high school in the U.S., in Sacramento, I was selling chocolate. So I would go to Costco, we'd buy a box of chocolate for $15, do the math, sell it. They had 30 pieces. I'd sell it, flip it for $30. So I was doubling my money every time. So I'd buy 3-4 boxes a week, and I'd run through them, sell them for $1 each. And then, I had $600 every single month just in my pocket. And yeah, like it was in high school until I got busted. Obviously, they don't want you to do that at school.
Yeah.
So they confiscated everything. They told me just take it home. Don't do that again. But I was still selling it after. And then when they told me no more chocolate, I started selling T-shirts. I went and bought a heat press, and then I would just like print. I bought the heat press. I bought the print thing that you put on the shirts, and then you press it. I went and bought the heat press from a place in the ghetto, because like it was on Craigslist. And it was on, it was pretty cheap. It was like $150.
Mm-hmm.
So I went there, and I had saved up my money, and I go there, and it's just this random shady place. And this guy was like, just super ghetto, man. I thought I was gonna get shot that day or robbed. So he was like, you got the money? I was like, yeah. He was like, come follow me. He takes me into his old warehouse, old room where he used to print stuff. And he was like, I'm trying to get out of this business. If you want to buy my blanks, I'll sell you. So I was like, okay. Bought $600 worth of stuff that day. And I come home, and I actually that day was the day my first time raising money. I raised it from my dad. I was like, Dad, listen, I can get this heat press. We can get these shirts. I can buy them for $7, sell them for $25. I already have 20 people saying that they'll buy it. And my dad was like, all right, numbers make sense. So he gives me the $600, and then I go and buy all the stuff. And then after I buy it, I start printing the shirts, and then the people that told me the pre-orders that I had, nobody wanted to pay. And they were all my friends. So I felt like ashamed a little bit of like forcing the sell. So I was like, man, I just have to sit on this inventory. And that's when I was like, man, I don't want to have inventory anymore. And then that was like my first disappointment in business, because I thought as soon as I buy the heat press, the quality is amazing. I researched everything I needed to research. I have everything I need to make sure that this is a good product. But even with a good product, people didn't buy. So I was like, okay, so I need to not make this mistake again. And, in college, there was like a big disappointment where I wasn't selling anything, because after the shirt disaster, I was like, man, I have too much debt. I owe my dad this $600. I have to go get a job. Mm-hmm. So I worked at a pizza place, and I worked at Cease Candy. So during college, I was like selling chocolate and selling pizza. And I started this blog called Discover Sacramento, because like I was like, blogs were trending at the time, and I was like, maybe I can sell ad space on my blog. So I had my neighbor, her name was Christina. I was like, hey, you're a really good writer. You love English. She was like an English major, I think, at the time. I was like, do you want to work with me? She was like, yeah. What do you want me to do? I was like, write all the blogs. I'll post them, and instead of paying you, I'll give you free food. Anywhere we go to write about a restaurant, they'll give us free food, and we can just eat for free. So we did that for a year. And the blog reached 50,000 hits a month organically. Like 50,000 people were going on the website in a local Sacramento area monthly. And then that's when businesses were like, hey, do you guys do any Facebook ads? I was like, no, we don't. But we can manage your Instagram page. So I started selling SMMA. So yeah, social media.
I'm hold up. I want to stop you for a sec. I'm just shocked on how like this all seems so seamless for you. Like you're like, all right, I'm gonna go get a blogger. I'm gonna go get a writer. I'm gonna start selling this. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do. Like I don't like. Did you have mentors? Did you?
No, man.
You're just a kid who just thinks of like that.
You know
like,
what?
Strategically.
I feel like I'll tell you this, and I feel like now I'm trying to go back to thinking that way. When I was a kid, there was no like I had no like borders, right? You can literally say I'm gonna do this and do it. Like there was no like limiting beliefs. I had no fear of debt. I had no fear of lack of funding or lack of money or bills. I just did what I wanted to do, and I had time to just like go all in. Like when I tell you the hours that I spent going through Facebook pages and Facebook groups and YouTube videos on how to build your WordPress website. I got to a point where I was so good at building WordPress websites that my dad's friends were hiring me to build their sites because I was so obsessed with like learning the details of like how to build a successful blog. I made it work and I made it happen. So I was like the blog guy in the city of Sacramento, and then I started to make videos like, hey, like we're gonna go to 5 top restaurants in Sacramento and see which one's the best. And then I started going and interviewing people. Like, what do you guys think about Sacramento's nightlife? And I think that video did like 30,000 views. I took everything down just because of branding purposes. I didn't want to be that guy. Didn't want to confuse people. But it was like a lot of trial and error. It was a lot of just testing things out. Like I didn't have a path. I was just like seeing what hits, right? Like just throwing a bunch of things on the wall and seeing what sticks.
And then, so you're what, 18, 19 at this point?
18, 19.
How old are you now?
I'm 28.
28, okay.
Yeah, turned 28 in the month.
It's about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Nice. And then you start your own SMMA, you start selling those solutions.
Yeah, because businesses were like asking me.
Like local Sacramento businesses?
Sacramento businesses. I would walk into I remember this Andy Scandy spot, right? Walked in there and I was like, hey, I would like to feature you on my blog. He was like, okay, that's cool, but do you guys like do any social media management? That's when social media management was like becoming a thing. And nobody knew like how to take pictures of their stuff and post it. Instagram was pretty like fresh.
New, yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, yeah, we'll come in, send my photographer, and then we'll get your post scheduled, and then we'll take care of you there. We'll post 3 times a week for you. That's the sweet spot. I remember like having the whole pitch. I'm like, you want to post like maybe 3 to 4 times a week because I charged them for that, obviously. And then I'll tell you this, I maybe wasn't like, I thought social media management and content posting was going to be like it for me. So we scaled that to I scaled that to 7,000 a month. So I was making $7,000 a month as 18-year-old. And I was paying the girl that was helping me out maybe a couple $100 a month. And then I was like, I can't physically post all of these posts every day. I have too many businesses to manage, too many things to do. Like it's impossible for me to do. So I got turned off by that model. I was like, I can't be the one posting. And my clients would hit me up like, hey, like it's been a week, where are the posts? And I would just like, the way I would handle the stress is like, just ignore it. I wouldn't reply, just ghost my clients, And I was like, maybe it's just, they're going to forget, but they never did.
They're going to forget, yeah.
Yeah,
totally.
so I had to refund a bunch of people, and I'd much rather refund than like leave on bad terms. So like, realized I needed to switch things up. So I realized, what if I start selling ads? So I remember the first day I thought about selling ads. This guy, and I have a picture actually with him when we got our first check. This guy owned a cell phone store, and he liked the concept of Discover Sacramento. He was like, what if we partner up and we try to sell advertising and video content as a package? I was like, let's do it. So we partnered up literally at a Starbucks. We had a contract drafted. He's like seasoned in business. He knows what he's doing. I have nothing, like I'm just a kid that was a little delusional. I'd say really delusional and a little arrogant. Delusional in the sense of I thought anything is possible. I could do whatever I want. And arrogant is I'm never going to take no for an answer. If you tell me no, how could you? How dare you tell me no? Yeah. Right? So like I had those like 2 characteristics, and then I remember we said, let's do it. And then I think the next day we drove together to this restaurant, and he was like, come, I want to show you something. We walk into this Mexican restaurant, literally random restaurant, and he walks in, and he was like, "Can I speak with the owner?" So the owner goes in, the lady goes in, grabs the son of the owner, comes out, son comes out. He's like, "Hey, I'm the son of the owner. How can I help you guys?" And then he made his pitch with so much confidence. The guy was like, "Let's do it." Goes back, grabs the checkbook, comes and writes us a $600 check. Right in front of him, and I was like, what the heck just happened? How is that even possible? So I was like, $600 per client, and I can do this all day. So I saw him do it, cold pitch, and cold walk into a restaurant with so much confidence. I was like, he was like my role model. I was like, man, I want to be like this guy. And he's very successful right now, actually. He owns a coffee shop, like a mobile coffee business, and cell phone stores. And I'm pretty sure he's also in different projects. And he owns a marketing agency. So his name is Sada. Amazing guy. Taught me a lot, actually, in business. Indirectly and directly. Indirectly by the way he was, and directly by the things he told me to do. Mm-hmm. So we go in. Partnership didn't work out because of my arrogance. I was like, I'm not going to do the things you tell me to do because like I don't work for you. So we butted heads, and he was much older. So we ended up just parting ways. And then I realized, I can just start walking into businesses and just pitching and selling this service, and that's what I did. And I did that for like 5 years. And I think at the peak, before I niched, $15,000 a month. When I niched and just focused on dental, my top was $80K a month.
You went to dental, was it because parents were in dental?
Yeah, it was like the fastest.
It's like an easy in?
Super easy, because I played soccer with 20 dentists a week.
Oh, wow, so you're like, hey, let's go.
Every single week I played soccer, because they're my dad's friends. So my dad invites me to play with them. So I was like, hey. So what I started doing was I took Sam Oven's consulting accelerator course, and that opened my eyes to a lot of things. I was like, maybe I am a consultant. I was like, you know what? I've been selling consulting this whole time. And then Sam Ovens talked about a fulfillment partner, right? Where he's just like the golden link between service delivery and fulfillment and, selling the client. So I was like, I can sell and have somebody else fulfill. And didn't work the way I wanted because I couldn't find quality fulfillment in the beginning. So I had to end up doing it myself. And that kept me like bottlenecked. So I couldn't really go beyond a certain like revenue number. And then slowly I started getting better and better. And then I realized dental is not it because I didn't like dealing with dentists. Just, they're tough to deal with. My dad's a dentist. They're very like narrow focused and narrow minded. And they're not willing to experiment because of the bad experience they have with each marketing agency.
So you hit $80K a month with that offer?
I hit $80K a month with
that. And then
that.
you stopped it?
COVID hit.
Oh, COVID hit.
Yeah.
Okay.
COVID hit. And I hit $80K thanks to this guy named Joel Kaplan from Seven Figure Agency.
Joel Kaplan, yep.
Man, I'll tell you this.
Such a small circle, man.
I'll tell you this. When I hit up Joel Kaplan, I think it was before COVID, a year before COVID, and I was like, I made a lot of money and I lost a lot of money. Like people think when you make money, you just keep it.
No.
I have no idea how I was blowing through $15,000-$20,000 a month.
Dude, yeah, I know.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
But it happens. And it's like, it's scary because like you're like, damn, I'm so bad with money. And I was terrible with money.
Yep.
Because I bought everything I wanted, right? Like if I see something nice, I'll buy it. So I remember like literally losing everything and getting fired by a bunch of clients, bad experiences, chargebacks. I had a team of 4 people at the time, and the management was so difficult. It was my first time managing a team in a physical location. We had a physical office space. They were all older than me, just one guy my age. And the way I put the team together was I put it based on people I liked. So I remember walking into a gym that I was working with. They were a client of mine. And I saw the guy that was working at the front desk. His name is Anthony. He's a big email marketer now. And I saw him. I was like, man, why don't we work together? He was like, yeah, I'm trying to get into copywriting. I was like, forget all that. Come work with me. I'll teach you all about ads. And I knew ads at the time because I was running ads. So I took him. He quit his job. He started working with me the same week. And I taught him everything I knew about advertising, Facebook ads. And we started like onboarding clients. And then I was at a dinner one time, or like a breakfast gathering. It was such a coincidence because I didn't want to go, and this girl was like, she was one of my clients. She was like, you have to come because you'll network here. So I ended up going, and then I was like, guys, does anyone know of a video guy that can make short content that's like trending and can like convert? And nobody knew what I was talking about because like they're all business owners.
Language?
So like they were like, yeah, this guy here does video. Let me introduce you to him. So they introduced me to this guy named Sammy, and Sammy was like a freaking legend with video. So I was like, Sammy, this is exactly what, he shows me some examples, like, this is exactly what I'm looking for. So I ended up finding him, and then we negotiated his salary, and then he was like, I'll quit my job next week. I was like, done. So I had 2 people full-time in 1 week, going from nothing to full-time employees. And then a couple weeks later, we put up an ad for a sales guy, all on Instagram. Like, hey, I'm looking for a sales guy. Does anyone know? And this kid calls me. His name is Michael. He calls me. He's like, it's so funny because I didn't know how to interview. I didn't know. I just called. He was like, hey, I'm interested. So I was like, what's your phone number? He gives me his phone number, and I just call him. No question. I didn't have anything ready. You know, that's what I was saying about not having any expectations or like limitations, just doing it, right? Just getting it done. So I called him, and he was like, yeah, I can do sales. And he was so confident on the phone. I was like, this dude is arrogant. I like that. He was so arrogant on the phone and so cocky. I was like, he must know what he's doing. I didn't know he was 18 years old. So I'm like, okay, sounds good. Can you come to the office for a in-person interview next week? He was like, yeah, sounds good. I'll see you then. He hangs up. Like, I was still talking. I was like, damn, this dude's too confident. I like that. You know, I was like, he must be a savage. And then he shows up to my office. I was like, what the heck? This kid's 18 years old. But I loved him. And he's still in sales. And I keep in touch with all of them. You know, we're all still close. But my management was so terrible because I kind of just over-delegated and never like held anyone accountable and never really managed anything. I would tell them, hey, we got to be in the office from this time to this time, but I wasn't in the office myself. Guys gotta work harder, but I was like chilling all day, you know what I mean, hanging out with, and they were like, okay, so the trust between leadership and the team was starting to like fall apart. Yeah. And they ended up just resenting me as a leader. And we're good friends now, but I think that was I felt unworthy of leading a team of people that were older than me. Sammy was in his 30s. Anthony was my age. Mike was younger. And then I had another guy named Cope. He was our COO, and he was in his 30s. And, you know, I felt undeserving because I didn't know what I was doing. I'm like, how am I going to lead a team of people when I have no direction myself? Not just direction, I have no, like, self-control. I would drink energy drinks all the time, and I was just wired all day. And, you know, I wasn't, like, a emotionally stable person. And they saw through that. They believed in the confidence, they believed in leadership, but eventually it fell apart.
It took a hit.
And then I was left with an office space I couldn't pay for, rent I couldn't afford, eviction notices, both on the office lease and on my apartment. We had a penthouse, $5,700 a month. When there's no income, it's ridiculous, right?
I'm laughing because this reminds me of myself
so
so much. Man, it makes me feel good. At least I'm not the only insane guy.
I dug myself a big hole, and I was like, chargebacks on the accounts, clients calling me because one of my employees, my
team members. You get sued?
Like, so close, dude. I had to settle a lawsuit because someone on the team got hurt, and they were like, okay, we're going to take you to court because you don't have workers' compensation, and you technically were 1099s, but you have us working in the office, and you give us hours to work.
Oh, God, they pulled that on you?
Yeah, so I had to pay out $7,000 just to not get sued.
Nice.
Yeah, and that's when I realized those are just expensive lessons.
Yeah, 100%.
The most expensive one when a business partner of mine took $300,000 from my bank account.
Ouch.
Yeah, but we'll get into that after. But yeah, man, so crazy.
Did you lose all your money?
Yeah.
Every single dollar?
Oh yeah.
You were down to zero?
I would maybe down to negative like 50.
50,000.
50,000.
Negative.
Negative 50.
Hell yeah, bro.
Yeah. Negative 50K. Negative 50K. So at the time, I was negative like 15,000.
How old were you?
23.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
23-year-old negative 50,000.
Yeah. So I didn't know. Like, my dad was like, my dad saw the 80K hit in my bank. He saw the money coming in. He was like, man, you're gonna be a millionaire. You're gonna be the first millionaire in the family. I was like, yeah.
So that expectation, like.
So he was, and then literally a few months later, I have nothing. I have negative 50,000, and I didn't know how to even approach him
About it.
So I felt so disappointed. But I never borrowed money except from one friend, Caleb, who gave me $300 to pay my rent because I was $300 short. Never borrowed money to repay anyone. I always like figured it out, you know, like thank God.
Did you pay the debt off, or did you
I paid
dismiss
it all
or?
off. 6 months. Took me 6 months to pay it all off.
You paid it off.
All of it.
So you closed this agency, or you kept it rolling?
I mean, dude, I was negative 50K. There's no physical. I couldn't even afford to pay my PandaDoc subscription to send my invoices. I couldn't even afford the payment processing fee that Stripe was charging me.
Yeah.
It
so
was
obviously,
that bad.
like in that point, I'm sure there was a lot going on mentally.
I was destroyed.
Yeah.
I was like, maybe this is not for me. This life is too tough. Maybe it's not for me.
Yeah, but you've tasted the money. So it seemed like you had a nice place. Were you driving a nice car?
Driving a Maserati.
Nice. So you've tasted money.
Yeah.
And now it got all pulled from you. Stripped completely.
And a big slap to the face.
What was the thought process?
I was a failure.
Did you go through any depression, or like how was the emotions?
For like 6 months. I think I made a TikTok video on it. For 6 months, I was like paralyzed. The biggest time where I've experienced the most failure, and I don't know how to even explain this because I don't want to ever go back to that place or feel those emotions again. I'm much maturer now, and I know how to handle like stress and disappointment. But at that time, as a kid, I'm still soft, you know. I still don't know how to handle these emotions. So losing everything and having to go back and move in with my parents, bro. When I tell you this, I had a penthouse. I've never even talked about this. I've had a penthouse, and I swear to God, for days I was just eating like chips and salsa.
Damn.
That's all I had because my roommate liked chips, so he would buy a lot, and I would just eat from the big bag of chips that he'd get from Costco. I didn't have $1. So I got to a point where I was so hungry, I was starving. I called my sister and I was like, can you please come visit me and get me some food on your way? Can you get me some snacks, something to eat? I haven't eaten in 3 days.
God.
Yeah, and I didn't want to feel bad for myself, but I got to that point of like, there's like levels, like, right, you get to debt, you get to like depression, desperation, and then just like, you're paralyzed.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, how did you dig yourself out? So like 6 months, did you stop working for a little?
Yeah.
How many,
I couldn't work.
Yeah. How long did it take you to like move?
Like, I'd say like it took me a good 6 to a year, 6 months to a year.
To just
to
start
get
something.
To get back to like feeling like myself again.
Okay.
And
did you get a job?
No, I called my dad. I was like, Dad, can I please come home? I can't. There's nothing I can do here. Like, I'm in debt. I'm having thoughts about hurting myself.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm good mentally. I've like contemplated suicide several times. Like, seriously, like it's that dark place, you know, where you feel like you're such a failure that the world would be a better place without you.
Yep.
And
I unfortunately know how that feels.
Man, it's like, and when they say it's lonely at the top, I mean, at the top of your successes, it could be lonely with a big failure like this, right? So I definitely wasn't stable mentally to be home alone or to be by myself. And I ended up just like canceling my lease. I told the leasing office, I was like, hey, I can't pay. Like, ruin my credit history, ruin my renter's history. I don't care. I can't pay you. So they threatened to bring a lawyer into the picture, and I just had to sublease my lease. I had to sign off my lease to someone else. And then my roommate took over the lease, and I got my name off. Moved back with my parents, and for like, I'm telling you, for months I was just laying in bed,
doing nothing.
Nothing. I couldn't afford to think about what the next.
And this
step
debt
was.
was just on credit cards or what?
It was on credit cards and on literally chargebacks, like Stripe. I owed Stripe.
Yeah. You paid it back?
I had to pay it back. It's to me, it's like it's the principle, you know, like it's at my ethics. Like I cannot move forward knowing there's something that I didn't handle in the back.
Huh.
And to me, like, F the money.
Because you could have like opened another LLC and then like
100%.
yeah, and like
But-
Stripe is not gonna come after you for it.
But to me, like knowing that I owe someone something that I didn't take care of it when it's their right, it's their money. I know shit comes back around. Anything that we do, like anything that I do, I know there's gonna be a consequence to it.
Yeah.
There's like, you do something, you see the consequence happen, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. So I didn't want that negative, like karmic debt, right? So I took care of it. I paid it off, and I wanted to prove it to myself. I remember having to build an Excel sheet, and I was like, I owe this person this much, this company this much, this company this much, this credit card this much, this debit card this much. My credit score was like 400 something.
God.
400s. Like now I'm in the 700s,
Uh-huh.
right? But it took me like years to rebuild
Yeah,
my
yeah,
credit.
that takes a while to recover.
And, it was like I had to re-strategize a little bit about how to proceed and move forward again. And it took me like several years to hire my first person again, just because I felt like maybe I was unworthy of having employees. But now that's changed with.
So what did you
obviously
do?
time.
Did you like create another offer? I'm sure now you have a lot of skills.
Yeah.
So you knew like how to make
I mean,
money.
you heard me on the phone, right? Like with skills, now I can literally I can sell anything.
Yeah, 100%. We got on a sales call together the other day. I remember I got off. I was like, man, I need more people like this to work with. Like,
Yeah, I can literally sell anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have no fear of, first of all, no fear of losing, and no fear of rejection, and no fear of lack of resources. Like before, I was like, when I had sales calls, I'm like, I need to get the money. Like I need to sell this person so I can support the team. But now I'm like, if this person doesn't buy, there's another 10 that I can reach out to.
yeah.
There's no lack of any resources.
That's
in
so
my world.
interesting, man. I'm processing what you're saying because I went through something similar last year, right? And we'll talk about that off
I
camera.
remember we talked about it briefly.
Yeah.
Online.
Like literally, you saw it firsthand.
Yeah,
I reached out to you when I was in that whole like,
The depression
OMG,
phase.
I need to figure something out
Yeah.
now, So it's oddly makes. I'm glad we're having this conversation because it makes me feel a bit less crazy
Yeah.
in a sense. Because like I remember thinking like, oh my god, like I don't know how the heck this is gonna work out,
And sometimes you have to trust, you have to be delusional. Like I feel like success is convincing yourself that whatever you're seeing is not true.
Or that this is just like part of your story and
Yeah, but I never really when I look at something, I'm like, okay, this is just what I'm seeing now, but this is not the truth. This is because if it was the truth, it would always stay the same way. But if it's not the truth, then I can always change it.
yeah.
Right? It's like you see a bad image, you can just move it out of your way. I'm like, I don't want to see this, right? Like you see a bad post, you can just swipe, get to the next post. And that's how I always saw my reality. If I don't see something I in my life that manifested itself, I always think, what did I do to see this right now, and what can I do to not see it again? And
So
I hate being broke, man. I'll tell you
sucks.
this, it's the worst feeling ever, especially with people that don't have the money cap. Like if you're used to making over 20, 30,000 a month, making 10,000 a month you're actually broke.
Yeah.
It's very hard to live on 10,000 a month.
Uh-huh.
And people don't, when you tell them 10,000
They
a month,
think
they're
that
like,
you're
bro,
crazy."
you are insane.
Yeah,
You're just
yeah,
spoiled.
I know. My friend, actually Omar, was here yesterday. We're sitting outside on the patio. And he goes, dude, we always make fun of each other because our taste is ridiculous, I mean, he's had $100,000 days. So we've both experienced pretty interesting money. So he's like, hey, just curious, dude, so basically your car and your rent. And I go, yeah, if you calculate them, it's about 8,000 just to live and move. Which I know you're probably like, what the hell? But we started laughing about it because we're like, the standards are so different, And I actually went through, interestingly, I guess you could say I picked up the plane before it crashed because, I already had a lot of these things when the crash happened.
Yeah.
So my whole life was based off of an income that was $250,000 a month plus, right? And so my breakdown was I'm already in contracts with all these, I have a car to pay, kind of like you, right? But it's funny, you're right. 10,000 a month is really nothing.
Nothing.
It's I don't even know how people, like, I've met people, with all due respect to them, you know, like their life goal is like 15, 20K a month.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, like you can do better than that.
And listen, man, some people, they're better off just not making the money. Like, people don't understand how difficult it is to like manage money and manage yourself with money. It's like, once you have money, your responsibility is the money itself, the resource, and the driver of the vehicle, the owner of the resource. So now you're like, okay, I made 100,000 last month. I can afford to go out and do a bunch of cocaine. You know? and literally like live the wildest dreams, like live my biggest fantasies. I'm not saying cocaine is a fantasy, right? But I'm just saying, like, that's what people actually do.
Yeah.
People get rich, make a little bit of money,
crazy.
and they go crazy.
Yeah.
So now, like, how do I stop myself from going crazy? I have to be disciplined. I have to know what I am and what I'm not. And I think when I started making money as a young teenager and early 20s, I had to experience the bad side of money
To understand it.
to understand what not to be. Because
Yeah.
I was like, I would say I was a terrible person. I was so selfish, man. I apologize to all the people that had to experience that version of myself, but it was necessary to express for me to know not to be that guy.
Hey, it's yeah, bro. It's mind blowing because I'm still in the process of processing everything. I'm kind of like still reflecting. You know,
Yeah.
I'm 25, so you got a couple of years on me.
Yeah.
Right.
25 is when things change for me. I think I talked to a therapist and he was like, dude, when you turn 25, your brain, your prefrontal cortex, decision making is like matured.
Yeah.
Something clicks where you're like, okay, what
You
go
think
through
deeper on things.
Yeah, you go through this phase, and actually the psychologist told me about it. He was like, you go through this phase in your early 20s, he was like, between teenage years to your early 20s, up to 25 years old, you're doing something called the discovery phase, where you're trying to learn what you are and what you're not by experiencing as much as possible, whether it's good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to concerts, you're dating, you're trying different, drugs, substances. You're seeing what you can identify with and what you can't identify with. Things you like and you don't like. When you turn 25, you go through something called the revision phase. Is when you look back at the old experiences, you realize, okay, I'm 25 years old, and it's subconscious. What am I going to take into my 30s and late 20s? What type of experiences do I want to carry on to my future life?
Yeah.
And that's when you start to construct your actual identity that you're going to walk into your 30s with. And your 30s is when you're like, that's it, you're stable mentally, you know what you want, and you're driving yourself into whichever like career path you chose.
I think the biggest shift for me was like, I wanted to be at X amount by X age so bad that I killed myself over it almost. And now, like, as I get older, like this year it clicked. I went, dude, I'm still really young, like, and I could like, in my head, I'm like, okay, like 5 years is a lot of time, like from 25 to 30.
Yeah.
And then also I recognize, I'm like, dude, even at 30 to 40, I'm still young as hell. Like, and that's like my prime. And like, I think because I used to reflect and look at my past 5 years and how insane it was. It's just like up and down, side to side over. I'm like, oh my God, is this really how life going to be?
Yeah.
But then you tend to realize, like, no, not really. Like, you kind of, like you said, you figure yourself out, you get your skills and you honed in, and you just, as long as you keep going, I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
You just can't stop.
You can't. I mean, because like what? You're going to stop and do what?
It's funny. I used to say this a lot. I do something so much to a point where I position myself in a corner, because a lot of people are like, hey, how do you get the motivation to do something? I'm like, do it so much to a point that it becomes so part of your identity that it feels stupid for you to not do it.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, imagine working out for 8 years and then waking up one day and going, oh, I don't want to work out today.
That's ridiculous.
You're like, bro, what the hell? This is dumb. Like, I'm going to go work out, you know? So, like, I feel like me and you are at that stage in business where it's like, yeah, you could strip all of our money away, but I'm not going to go get a job, dude. Like, I'm used to making 80 grand a month, 100 grand a month, like, dude, I'm used to doing millions.
I will drive Uber. I will do whatever I need to do. And us knowing what we know now, like, it's not to sound arrogant, but everything is always one sale away, right? You're always one close away from taking care of your bills.
Yeah.
Close that
true.
deal. You know, like, if you're struggling, my bills, I know, like, I need to cover a certain amount every month to cover all my bills. I know
If you
exactly
move
how
down
many.
to OC, it's gonna triple.
I know exactly. I know, man. I know.
You're gonna double or triple at least.
But at least you know exactly what that translates into new deals, right? Like if
Yeah,
I
yeah.
close X amount of clients, I can pay all my bills, right? And be like,
You know what's something
break even.
stupid that I used to do? I used to buy things that were expensive because in my head I'm like, I wanna push through that number. I don't know if this used to work, but it would be like, okay, cool, like say a car. Like when I got the M5.
M5, yeah.
Yeah, it's a multiple $1,000 monthly payment.
Now, when I found that, I was like, damn,
Yeah. And
that's my buddy's mortgage.
yeah, and I was, what am I, 25 now? I was 23. I walk into this dealership, and I'm like, hey, M5, how much? Guy looks at me, puts numbers, he goes, it's this. I was like, well, can you negotiate like a couple hundred? He's like, nope. And I'm like, okay, what about if I give you this? Nope. And he's like, look, dude, I don't care if you buy it or not. Like, the next guy across the street's going to get it in like 5 minutes. We barely even have these in stock. I remember I went home. No, I didn't even go home. I think I went outside in the dealer, and I'm looking around thinking, I'm like, okay. So I make like, I was doing like 200 grand a month at the time, right? So I was like, okay, I'm doing like 200 grand a month. Sure. All right, like I pay right now, my Range Rover previously was like, I think $1,550 a month. So I was kind of used to bigger payments. But I remember every time I would push through, I would purposely buy the thing just so I can like
Be uncomfortable.
force myself to
Yeah.
be in a position to go, I have to figure out how to make more money. Now, I don't recommend this to anybody that's watching, because obviously, like, from the story that you heard from Abe, mismanagement of finances is not a good idea.
Terrible.
Yeah. But I feel like I don't know if you can agree with me on this. I feel like I had to do that. I had to live that part of me so that now when I make the real money, because I know like me and you, bro, like real money is in the tens of millions. It's not 100 grand a month.
No.
Yeah. So I feel like if I was given that then, terrible.
Yeah.
But because of those lessons, now when I do get in my 30s and I'm doing that kind of money, you know, if God wills and we get there, then I'll be a lot better at managing it and I'll respect it more and I'll understand it more. And so it's like, it's weird. You kind of have to go through that phase.
100%. And like I feel like that's just like breaking the limiting belief. Sometimes it's necessary to break that belief, it's like to taste it so you know it's possible.
Yes. I actually see money very differently now, dude. Like about, I think a month ago, I really, my two like favorite cars, okay, I want like 7 different cars, but one of the cars I want to get is the Ghost Black Badge, the Rolls Royce. So I walked into the, keep in mind, there's no way I can afford it right now, right? I walked into the Rolls Royce dealership. I'm like, hey, just out of curiosity, do you guys lease these cars? And she goes, yeah, we lease them. Because I don't do financing or anything like that. And I'm like, how much? And she goes, oh, it's like if you put $50K down, it's $6,500 a month. And I remember my reaction was, okay, dope, I'll be back. See you.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think of numbers as, oh my God, that's a lot. I just,
Yeah.
it's relative to your situation.
You know what? I actually was reading this in a book, and I forgot the name of the book. He was saying, people, there are 2 different types of people.
Mm-hmm.
People that pay for things with their time, and people that pay for things with their creativity. An artist is going to fund his lifestyle, the expensive things, the luxuries of life, and the travel and experiences with his creativity. What does a creator do when they need to create something? They go into the zone of genius and create it, right? And that brings value to the world. But someone that pays for things with their time will never be able to afford everything they want because their time is finite.
It's limited.
You only have 12 hours a day,
Yeah.
and you're not going to work 12 hours a day.
That's true.
Anyone that says I work 12 hours a day is not working 12 hours a day. They're fitting their work in 12-hour windows, but you know it's not efficient work probably because you can't do that. Our bodies are not designed to be like in that constant mode of stress for 12 hours a day. You're going to die.
That was another
you know?
lesson that I
Yeah,
learned,
if you want to age yourself and multiply the rate of your aging, go ahead and do that. But I realize creative artists, like if you look at Einstein, he said that you can't solve a problem thinking. You can't find the solution thinking from the same place as the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the best work that he's been able to put out came from him being in a state of complete bliss and like doing nothing to be able to find something. Because you don't get these inspirations in the time you're busy doing busy work.
100%.
You got to relax.
100%.
You look at all the rich people, bro, like wealthy ass people, they hang out on yachts all day long. but they think of like, oh, what about if I buy this company and we get into this new acquisition deal and we, triple our revenue next year? What if we invent AI that can help people solve? You don't think of these problems when you're just sitting down in your home office, cranking out, doing work. You don't do that. There's like tiers of like execution is the lowest tier of productivity and wealth. The executors,
Isn't that so interesting?
Yeah, the people that execute on tasks, that's the lowest level. You don't make millions doing execution.
Yeah.
You can make a couple 100,000 a year, but you'll never make millions executing, right? Managing, you manage a bunch of executors. Your manager oversees, he's not doing the execution himself, maybe a little bit, but he's managing a bunch of executors. Top of management, you have the people that are above managers that, maybe entrepreneurs, right? That create businesses, manage businesses, drive growth. And then on top of that, you have your visionaries, the people that actually dream up all these things that we see today. Your Steve Jobs, that's where billions live. Those guys aren't busy doing busy work. You do the necessary work and then you delegate. You find the team that you're going to tear it down to and you get rid of the task. Mm-hmm. Steve Jobs wasn't coding himself. Never.
Yeah, no. And even if you watch the documentary, like
he wasn't designing
Steve
himself.
Wozniak was the one that designed the computer. And then but Jobs was the one that pitched it for like VCs.
Because he had the vision. Even Bill Gates, he actually didn't. He paid for it. He paid the guy $50K that he didn't even have. He didn't have the 50 grand. He actually borrowed the 50,000.
Yeah. It's like seeing those little angles.
Exactly, and like you don't see those angles from up close. Like this is the picture of life, right? Most people are looking like this, and they're like, "Man, I just see a leg." But if you actually zoom out a little bit, you'll see the whole picture. You'll see the whole body. But zooming out takes time to get to, and zooming out needs experience, and it needs you to just relax your mind. You can't be thinking about You can't be in survival mode and expect to be in your zone of genius.
It's funny. I think like going from, because I explained that as like the worker's mindset to like a CEO's mindset. That was very hard for me to break through. I think actually like part of my like destruction last year was the fact that I was so like involved in everything, which I was trying to like. And so I just kind of ended up in this like hellhole of like I burnt out, couldn't do it. But dude, so $50K in debt, and then what? You partner with this guy who's running an e-commerce store, and you go and make $2.5 million a month?
No, I joined the 7-figure agency group with Joel Kaplan. And man, I owe this guy. How'd you pay for that? I owe this guy a lot.
How'd you pay
honestly. For it? Funny story. I think I still have his the messages from his. Let me see if I have it. I have messages from his. His name was Sergio. Anyways, so this guy, back in 2020, right?
Yeah.
Talking to him, I was down to my last $300, and the program was $15K. So I was like, okay. So I saw the results. I had to see it to believe it, and I understood environment was everything. So I was like, how can I join the program? So I had several calls with a sales guy. I was like, listen, I want to join. I just don't have money. He was like, well, what can you do? I was like, can I pay $50 down after this call just to show you I'm serious, and just give me access to the course and I'll make payments on it? He was like, I can't do that. I was like, just give me to the end of the week and I'll figure something out. He's like, how much can you put down? I was like, 300 next week. He's like, okay, I need at least $1,000 because this is a $15,000 program. I was like, I'll figure it out. So I went. I went to my dad. I was like, what can I help you with to get paid? He was like, can you help me with these things in the office? I was like, sure. So I worked at my dad's office so I can get paid. And then my first paycheck, I went and paid my entire paycheck to a 7-figure agency to be able to access the course. And within 5 weeks after joining the course and the program, obviously I had to make $3,500 payments every single month to be in the program so they don't kick me out. Within the first month, and I put $1,000 on my credit card to run ads.
You still ran ads being $50K in debt.
When I tell you,
ballsy mofo, bro.
Listen, man, I had no other option. I saw 7-figure agency. I saw Joel say paid ads. So I was like, okay, paid ads. Like I said, delusion. Like being in a state where you don't care what you're seeing. The picture is not real. Yeah. Like this is not real. None of what I'm seeing is real. It's what I'm seeing today is a byproduct of something I did before.
Yeah.
So I don't expect to keep seeing the same image because it's not what I'm doing today. Spending the $1,000 on ads brought me a client that ended up paying me over $50,000.
No way.
One client, this guy,
50K.
50K over obviously over
What
the
was
lifetime.
the offer?
Dental. I was running
Oh, you ran the same thing again.
same thing again. I was like, why? I know this best. Let me run some ads. I had never run ads before. I used my dad's network before. Never run ads before. So I ran ads. I'm like, hey, we can help you generate new clients, new patients with AI. I just threw in the word AI, and it was all text ad. Nothing. It was just like a black text box with yellow font saying, we'll run your ads, we'll get you leads or patients with artificial intelligence. And they were like, oh, curious, what is AI? So they clicked on the ad, fill in the form, and then I'd get notified and I'll call and close. So within 4 months, 3 months, 4 months, I was in their 50K a month agency group.
So you went from 50K in debt to pulling in 50K a month.
Literally.
Paid off your debt, got out of it.
So I joined their up-level mastermind after it hit 50K. And then I was around, because I needed to elevate so I can see what the 50K guys are doing. So I went from like the 5K, 10K guys, and there were people in there that were in the program for 6 months and they couldn't break past the 10K. And there were people that had just joined. This guy named Jared was literally in the program. He's a kid, man. He's like 18 years old, 17 years old when he was joining. And he's like a multimillionaire. He just messaged me the other day. He's like, we're about to exit the company. His third company. 7-figure company. This kid's insane. And he was in the same group. So I'm like, okay, these guys, something's working for them. But every single person had their own thing and they stuck to it and they did it really well. This guy was like getting sales. Him and I joined at the same time. He got his sales through Instagram DMs. He was also in the dental niche. And he got to 20K in like 3-4 months. So I was like, okay, I just need to keep doing paid ads and paid ads and paid ads until I figure this out. So I put, it's like maybe my first $600 were not profitable. So I'm just like, every day I'd look at the ad. I'm like, man, okay, so I'm $600 in.
Out of 1,000?
How can I keep, like, when is it going to click? When is it going to click? I'd get some leads, trash leads. And there's one guy in Texas, Austin. He owns a dental office. He owns like 4 dental practices and he wanted me to work with 2. So we put together the offer, closed him on the deal. And I had the call. When I had the call, it was a FaceTime. It was not FaceTime. It was a Zoom call. And I made sure to go to a nice spot in my house. My parents have a house on the lake. So I went in the backyard so he thinks I have money, to live in that house. And he was like, man, that's a nice backyard. I was like, yeah, I'm just here at the house. Just like living in denial.
Yeah. Dude, no, I love it. You got to do what you got to do, man.
Closed on the spot. He's like, how much is it? I was like, oh, it's $3,500 the first month. After this, we hit the ceiling. Then it's 5K.
And then you, from there, partnered with somebody, started an e-commerce store.
Yeah, and then I ran that for a while, and then I was out of Joel Kaplan's program because I can now walk on my own, and then COVID hits. COVID hits every single dentist.
Oh, wait, so you lost all your money before COVID?
Yeah.
So you lost all your money, and then you restarted, and then COVID hits, and then you lost it again.
But different way. Lost it through a partnership. I'll explain.
Yeah.
This guy, so COVID hits, and then I go back to the same dark place, man. But it's not as bad this time because I'm like, okay, now I know what to do, like now I have some experience. So COVID hits every single month, every single week. I get a phone call from my clients like, hey, we need to cancel. It's not you. We really want to keep doing this, but we can't. We don't know if we can even keep our doors open. We're getting fined for seeing patients in our office. So it was like I understood where they were coming from. So I just, I was like, okay, fine. Lost all my revenue pretty much within a span of like a couple of weeks. And I was like, okay, so what do I do now?
Sucks, dude.
What do I do now? I had some cash in the bank. I was good. Because obviously I lowered my expenses this time. I was like, I'm not going to penthouse anymore and making a couple $100, like $1,000 in car payments. So I moved back in with my parents. Expenses were low, and then COVID hits. Friend comes up to me by coincidence. He was like, "Hey man, I've been flipping fitness equipment on Facebook Marketplace, and I'm doing really well. Can you help me out? I want to run some ads." I was like, "Man, just get out of here! Like, what am I going to do with Facebook Marketplace? Bro, I'm not going to flip equipment. I need to make money." A couple weeks later, man, we just hit 50K. I really need you to help me out with ads. I was like, 50K what? I was like, let me see your numbers, bro. He shows me his numbers. He's doing $50,000 flipping fitness equipment, buying and selling.
What the hell?
So I'm like, listen, man, this is all messed up. We're not buying it from marketplace. So you don't buy used equipment. We'll buy brand new from manufacturers in China. And that's when we started buying more product and selling it on Shopify. And first month, 150,000. Second month, we did like 300,000. Fourth month, 600. Fifth month, we did 1 million. And then that's when I met Eddie Malouf.
Yep.
At that time, he was in the Facebook 7-figure agency group. We met there, and then he came over to when he was in my city in Sacramento, and I was like, bro, come to my office, check it out. He comes to my office, and we're talking, and he had no idea what I was doing in e-com. He was like, yeah, so like, what type of business? I was like, oh man, I'm in this e-com, company, like I'm scaling this business, and would like to get your help on Google Ads, because right now we're not running any Google Ads, it's just Facebook, because that's all I knew. He was like, can I see your numbers? And he's like, bro, you're doing $1 million a month. He was like, what the heck? He was like, bro, I had no idea. I thought you were just one of those 50K guys in the group. I was like, because I'm super low key, man.
Yeah.
People think I'm like broke.
Yeah.
I live like I'm not. I don't live like I'm broke, but I don't live to show off.
Sure.
So like he looks at the numbers. He's like, bro, I can scale this for you. So just hire my team. We'll work for free. Just give me 10%. So I was like, oh, 10% of what? He's like, just anything I bring from email, give me 10% of it. I was like, oh, yeah. First month, the dude makes like 200 grand on email. I'm like, damn, wrote him a $20,000 check. And that was the biggest check I've ever written in my life to someone. So I remember giving him the check, and then my business partner was like, bro, like, no, let's not do 10% anymore. These guys are too good. I was like, so I had to renegotiate with my buddy Eddie. And then we started a business together at that time with fitness equipment. And he helped me scale it like 7 million in 6 months.
That's crazy.
And then
you stepped out.
Oh yeah, I saw the ship just sinking because logistically, man, it's a nightmare to scale that fast.
Sure, I know.
So I dealt with the logistical issues. I dealt with customer support. I dealt with feedback score on Facebook. Facebook was surveying our customers. You would buy something on Facebook, everything was pre-ordered, right? So you had to pre-order and wait 6 to 8 weeks to get your product. Because that's our lead time, 15 days to contact our supplier, maybe 30 days for them to ship it. So we had a wait time.
Yeah.
And it was pretty clear on the website. It was crystal clear on the checkout process and on the banner at the top of the site. So people would have these expectations that, okay, there's no equipment, no supply in the market, I'm gonna wait. And then Facebook randomly starts reaching out to every single customer and surveying them independently, asking them, did you receive your product yet? Like a week after they purchased. Obviously, they didn't. So they say no. So Facebook hits us with this negative feedback score. Now our ad cost goes up and our reach tanks, and they are threatening to close our page because our customers are complaining that they're not receiving their product. How are they receiving their product when we said they're not going to get it until, for 4 to 6 weeks or 6 to 8 weeks? So now we're having issues with Facebook, and then Google, obviously was scaling really well, and now we're having issues with fulfillment. Where we were hiring every week, we just couldn't keep up. We were doing internal fulfillment, so like it's impossible. We're getting hundreds of orders a day, man. We're doing millions a month. So how are we supposed to? The small operation, there was no way. So like the logistics and we had to keep up with the sales, because now the more money you make, the bigger debt you get into, because people don't understand this. When you're putting like $1 million in inventory orders, you don't just put the $1 million in inventory order and get the order right away. The money is actually, you pay the money, and the money's stuck in the lead time that you have it with your supplier for 15 days. And then after that, they process your order and they ship. The processing time takes time because they have to put their engravings, logos, whatever we need. And then it takes time to ship it, 30 days. So 30 plus 15 plus however much time they need.
Like almost 2 months.
2 months. Your million is stuck for 2 months. And if you have to fulfill orders, you're paying your shipping guys, you're paying UPS, you're paying your freight company to fulfill orders.
That's like 4 payrolls right there.
So like, plus your team, plus your warehouse. So it was very cash heavy, and our
You're
cash
not really
was,
making a lot of money.
no, your cash was tied to the business. So the more you make, the more you need to buy, because the more you need to fulfill. And it's just like it kept looping in upwards in terms of cost. And then obviously our margins supported it, so we were good. But one mistake can mess up this whole entire process. And that's what PayPal, God bless them, decided to put $600K on hold. Yeah, actually,
Yeah. Those guys don't give an
you know
F,
what?
bro.
It's still on hold to this day.
They don't care.
Yeah, it's still on hold. We hired lawyers and everything. You know what they did? They suspended our payment processing, just because we were getting chargebacks because we had $600K on hold. So they suspended our payment processing. Stripe suspends our payment processing because of the chargebacks. And that's when we didn't know much about payment processing and high-risk processing, and how you have to have several payment processors that you rotate so you don't get hit with 20 chargebacks on one account.
Yeah.
You have to keep them rotating so that it's not all in one place. So we didn't know that, so we got suspended, and we had to like show that we were fulfilling orders, because they were like, what if you guys are just scamming people? So we're like, no, we're not. We're fulfilling orders, but it's taking us time because our manufacturing takes time. So a day delayed in China costs us like tens of thousands of dollars here. So it was a shit show. And I got out of the business, thank God, and then it went bankrupt after that.
That's interesting. And
And
now
I
you're
started
just
another
running
one
your
after.
own.
I started the same exact business after that, actually.
The fitness thing?
Yeah. I started that with another person. We were, buying from the same suppliers. Everything was the same. Buying from my old business partner. We were buying out his old equipment to help him, mitigate some of the losses that he had. And then business partner decides, I was paying myself. I made the entire investment into the supplies, right? I bought the equipment myself with my own money.
Mm-hmm.
He owned a gym, so he was just gonna be the one doing fulfillment. I was like, listen, 70-30. I put the capital up front. I do all the ads and the sales. Just handle the fulfillment. That's all you gotta do. And he was making like maybe $2,000 a month before we worked together. And then we're making hundreds of thousands together. And then he comes up to me one day, he's like, bro, I'm doing all of the work. I need more than 50%, than 30%. I was like, okay, 60-40. Long ass dragged out argument, agreed 60-40, shake hands on it, comes back to me after, a couple weeks later. I need 50-50, bro, or I'm not doing this. I'm like, God, this guy's just too greedy. But hey, he is doing a lot of work. 50-50, shake hands on it. All right, move on. One day, I paid myself maybe $700 more than I paid him. I put up all the capital. I have to get paid more.
Yeah.
And he was like, bro, I'm gonna let this ship sink unless you pay me exactly what you pay yourself.
Jeez.
I was like, bro, he's like, I feel like I'm working for you. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, we're partners, or like, I'm just taking a more of a leadership stance here. I'm helping you grow. Like, you actually should be grateful for this opportunity. You were making $2,000 a month, like not too long ago. And then greed got to him. And then I was like, bro, listen, I got to get out of this business. We can't work together. So when you don't have a partner's agreement, your business partner can literally take all your cash and take it out of the bank if you have joint bank accounts, and there's no legal repercussions or anything.
So he took out $300,000.
Bro, when I tell you the amount of money that I lost, my dad was like, you're going to be a millionaire. And I thought I was going to have millions in my bank account because our margins were amazing. And then all of a sudden I have nothing. Nothing. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So that was, I didn't even care. I was like,
You're like, all right,
okay.
round 2, round 3.
Yeah. You know what? The company went
Round
bankrupt.
3, not even round 2.
He made millions.
He did?
Yeah, he made millions, and the company went bankrupt after that. He ran into the same problem I ran into with the old business partner.
So I got to ask this question. You don't have to answer it. Have you touched 7 figures in the bank? Personally?
Many times.
Many
we had
times?
$3 million in the bank.
Yeah.
Yeah, our net profit last.
Not as a business, personally.
No. Well, but here's the thing. Like,
Yeah.
I don't send money to my business. I don't want to get taxed on it personally.
Oh, okay, cool.
So I never, like, the way I handle my finances is I pay myself no more than $15K a month. No more than that. It keeps you within the tax bracket where you pay the least amount of tax, and you have enough to survive, right? If I need more, I'll write checks to myself, or I'll take ownership, like dividends or whatever. But for me, like, I don't like to pay myself to keep money in the bank. I reinvested everything into the business. at the time, because I don't want to go half-assed, right? Like I don't want to be like
Yeah.
doing this for the money. It's really never for the money, never for the money. It's for the growth of the business and for the exit, eventually, so I can have enough money not to pocket and live my life. I don't want to go retire somewhere. I want to have enough money to go start the next project, and afford the lifestyle of being able to feel like I'm not in survival mode, so I can innovate and come up with offers and stuff.
Dude, you have a crazy story. We need to do 2 parts of this, man. We gotta.
Yeah, man, let's do it.
You're gonna be here in OC once again. We gotta film you again, but
Yeah, man, I'm thinking about moving down here actually.
because I could sit with you for like
yeah, and
hours on end. I have so many questions, but we're already an hour and 20 minutes in.
that is actually crazy.
Yeah,
I feel like
about.
it.
So I kind of gotta wrap it up. But anything in specific, like from all of these things that you've gone through, if you were to sum it up into one sentence, what's the lesson?
The lesson would be just be relentless. And I don't want to say relentless with like, don't persevere knowing that it's tough, right? Like people are struggling in their life, and they think that if they keep struggling, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Like, I don't believe in persevering in the direction that causes more friction.
Yeah,
I feel like friction is indirectly telling us that this is not our path.
it's not gonna work out.
Yeah, so like try to maybe take a step back in your life and analyze what are you actually good at that you can capitalize on, and instead of thinking about making the incremental growth, think about how to multiply it exponentially. Like when I hired my first hire, I was buying their time because I didn't want to spend my time doing that. So
Yeah.
that to me that was one step back. Like if I can say attribute one thing to success is like just delusion.
Delusion.
Just be
Be
delusional.
delusional, guys.
I don't know how to explain this. I don't know
Yeah.
how to like not sound like, you know,
No, just go at it. Like, just go
dumb,
at it. Like, you gotta.
but you have to be delusional with the your current life, right? You're seeing things you don't like.
Yeah.
If you were to act based on what you're seeing, you're never going to get to where you want to get. You have to act on what you know is possible. And what you know is possible is not what you're seeing today. Everything you have in your life is a byproduct of decisions you made in the past, not right now. What the decisions you're making right now affect the decisions, the image you're going to see. There's like law of like second degree of consequences, third order of consequence, right? So I'll give you an example really quick. You eat a cookie, first order of consequence is you feel great.
I know this in the principles book. Is that what you
Yes.
got it from?
Yeah. Second degree is you get a sugar crash and you feel bad.
Yeah.
Third degree is what you need to focus on, because that's when you gain weight.
Yeah.
Because with that weight gain, you're gonna feel like shit.
Yeah.
You're gonna look like shit, and you're gonna act like shit.
Yeah.
You're gonna live a life of a fat, overweight person. That's not a productive lifestyle. So now, every decision you make, you got to think of not the first degree of consequence or first order of consequence or the second. I think of the third, right? Like, okay, like in a year, what's going to happen? What is my life going to look like after I make this decision? Like, right? Like, no drugs, no alcohol, none of that lifestyle, BS lifestyle. Because like that, it might be a pleasure now, but down the line, my personality is going to change based on this decision. So I'm not making this decision now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's how I think now.
There's a lot of value here, man. We'll unbuckle it on part 2.
Yeah, man.
Because I think this is a good like story to introduce yourself, and then I want to like drill you with questions, man. I got so much
for
I
sure,
can go
man,
on
for
and on.
sure.
But,
And we'll have more experience working together.
yes, sir,
Yeah,
dude. After this, man, I'm like, we gotta do business together, dude. Like, I gotta make millions too, bro. But no, I appreciate you for hopping on, bro.
Appreciate you for having me, man.
Thank you.
Thank you.